Have you ever felt like something's shifting deep inside you, but you can't explain why? Like your world hasn't physically changed, and yet everything feels different. Heavy, muffled, as if life is pulling you into something you don't yet understand. If that sounds familiar, this isn't a coincidence. You didn't click this video by accident, you were called. Something in you, ancient, silent, buried, is waking up. And that subtle discomfort you feel, it's not a problem, it's a sign. In the language of Carl Jung, this is the whisper of transformation, the unconscious pushing forward, the soul knocking on the walls you've built around it, saying, "It's time." And what if I told you that the confusion, the chaos, the sudden loss of meaning in your daily life, it's not your breakdown, it's your breakthrough. This is how it begins. You wake up one day and realize the things you used to chase no longer excite you. The people you once connected with now feel distant. Your routines feel robotic, and even your dreams, they don't fit you anymore. It's like your life still looks the same from the outside, but inside, something sacred is unraveling. And here's the twist. Most people ignore it. They numb it. They try to get back to normal. But you're still here, still listening. Which means you've already stepped onto the path. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. Carl Jung called this a sacred initiation. A phase where the false self starts to die, so the real one can finally breathe. And it always begins with doubt. You start questioning everything, your values, your purpose, your identity. You start asking, who am I, really? Why does all this feel so empty now? Is this all there is, or is there something more? This is the moment your soul begins to peel away from the noise of the world and search for its true frequency. But I'll be honest with you, it's not always peaceful. In fact, at first it often feels like chaos. Because to become who you truly are, you have to let go of everything you were told to be. And that hurts. But listen. That pain, it's sacred. That confusion, it's the birth of clarity. That inner storm, it's sweeping away the false to make space for the true. If you're feeling this now, you're not falling apart. You're waking up. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the 7 undeniable signs that this shift is real. That you're not going crazy, you're crossing a threshold. And if you recognize even 3 of them in yourself, it means you're not just close to a new chapter, you're already living its first lines. Let's begin. Have you started to feel like a stranger in your own life? Like the places that once brought you comfort now feel hollow? The conversations that once energized you now leave you tired. The people you used to laugh with now feel distant, faded, misaligned. This isn't you losing your spark. This isn't apathy. This is evolution. It's one of the clearest signs that your old self, the version of you built on fitting in, surviving, performing, is quietly dissolving. And it hurts, doesn't it? There's this strange grief, not for something that's gone, but for something that's still here. but no longer resonates. This is the soul's way of letting go. You don't just wake up and become a new person. You shed your way into becoming, layer by layer, illusion by illusion, and that shedding, it's lonely because the world doesn't warn you about this part. No one tells you that becoming whole often begins with feeling like you're falling apart. You start noticing how old roles feel too small, how your job, your relationships, your routines, once comforting, now feel like cages. And you start hearing this quiet thought over and over: I don't belong here anymore. Carl Jung understood this perfectly. He wrote that the true self cannot emerge until the false one is dismantled. And sometimes that dismantling comes through detachment. Not because you hate your past, but because you've outgrown it. The problem is, we're conditioned to see detachment as a failure. We think, if I no longer enjoy what I used to, something's wrong with me. If I'm drifting away from people I love, I must be broken. But the truth is far more empowering. You're not breaking, you're releasing. And when you begin to release, everything changes. Your dreams shift, your goals blur. What once felt urgent now feels irrelevant. It's like your inner compass got recalibrated, not by logic but by something deeper. You start sensing that life wants something more from you. Something real, something aligned, and that's terrifying, but also liberating, because suddenly you're not chasing external validation, you're listening for internal truth. The world you built before was based on who you had to be. Now, you're discovering who you actually are, and sure, it's messy. You might cry more, isolate more, lose friends, cancel plans, sleep less, but through that disintegration comes clarity, and the voice you've been silencing for years. It gets louder. I want more. Something doesn't fit. I don't care about this anymore. This voice is not your enemy. It's your compass, and the more you trust it, the more signs start to show up. Synchronicities, gut feelings, strange moments of clarity in the middle of chaos. It's like life is whispering, keep going, you're almost there. So if you feel this disconnection, don't panic. It's not the end, it's the middle. And on the other side, a life that fits. Not the life you were taught to want, the one you were born to live. Let's go deeper. Have you ever woken up and thought, why was I chasing all that? The money, the approval, the image. At one point it felt necessary, even urgent, but now it feels hollow. That shift you're feeling isn't random, it's not laziness, it's not burnout, it's truth surfacing. Carl Jung believed that every real transformation begins with a collapse of the false center, and what you're going through is exactly that. You're not broken, you're being rebuilt. You see, the world teaches you to chase what looks good, not what feels true. We're told to measure life by how much we have, how we appear, how others see us. But at some point, your soul just says no more. That moment when your old desires stop lighting you up. It's not the end of your ambition. It's the beginning of your awakening. You start asking, why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? And what if I stopped? Suddenly, the things that once defined your worth, your job title, your productivity, your likes and followers, start losing their grip. You feel something rising from underneath, something quieter but more real. And here's where most people get scared, because when your outer world no longer mirrors your inner one, it feels like standing in the dark. You don't know what to chase, you don't know what matters, but this darkness, it's sacred, because in the absence of noise, you finally hear your own voice. You begin to notice the small things. The peace of silence, the warmth in a real conversation, the pull towards something you can't explain but deeply feel. You no longer want a bigger life. You want a truer one. And yes, it's disorienting. It feels like losing identity. But what you're really losing is illusion. You're no longer willing to betray your values just to fit in. No longer willing to abandon your joy for someone else's version of success. And this is where rebirth begins. You stop needing permission. You stop needing applause. You start needing alignment. Because real fulfillment, it doesn't come from applause, it comes from integrity. You begin to rebuild your life, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. You stop asking, "What will they think?" And you start asking, "What do I know?" You start to crave simplicity, presence, truth. You stop performing. You start living. And yes, that may distance you from some people, but it will bring you closer to yourself. Because when your soul starts speaking, it's not trying to impress the world. It's trying to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And that's not the end of anything. It's the beginning of everything. Let's keep going. Have you started feeling things before they happen? You can't explain it. There's no logic, no proof, just this deep knowing. Sometimes it's a pull, other times a warning, a sudden wave of calm, or a subtle anxiety when something's off. And you've begun to notice when you ignore it, everything gets harder. But when you listen, something clicks, things align, doors open, you breathe. This is your intuition, and it's not just a feeling. It's the intelligence of your soul, older than your mind, deeper than any rule book. Carl Jung said that the unconscious doesn't speak in words. It speaks in symbols, in images, in sensations, and your intuition, that's your bridge. That's the language your deeper self uses to guide you when logic has nothing left to offer. Here's what's wild. For years you may have lived in your head, always rationalizing, always doubting, always seeking outside answers, but now that's starting to shift. You're no longer content analyzing every move. You want to feel, you want to know, without explaining. Because truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper in your chest, a subtle yes in your gut, a pull towards something that makes zero sense, but feels like home. And the more you listen, the stronger it gets. You begin noticing signs, repeating numbers, perfectly timed conversations. A book falling off a shelf. A line in a song that hits so deep it feels like it was written for you. Coincidence? Maybe. But maybe it's something more. Maybe it's alignment. Maybe your life is beginning to reflect your inner clarity, not the other way around. And here's the thing, you don't need anyone else to validate it. You don't need to prove it. You just need to trust it. And yes, that's terrifying. Because trusting your intuition means stepping into the unknown. It means saying no when everyone else says yes. It means leaving when logic says stay, and staying when fear says run. But this is the moment where your old life ends, and your real one begins. You start following your felt truth, not the programmed version. And suddenly, you're not looking for signs, you are the sign. You're not asking for permission, you're creating direction. You're not surviving by calculation, you're living by connection. Because here's the secret, you were never meant to live cut off from yourself. You were never meant to outsource your wisdom. You were born with a compass, you just forgot how to read it. And now you're remembering. So if your inner voice has gotten louder, if your instincts are tugging on your sleeve, and if everything inside you says it's time, it is. Keep listening. Because that voice, that's not fear, that's not fantasy, that's your future calling you home. There comes a moment, quiet, unmistakable, when something inside you says, I can't keep doing this. Not because you're tired, not because you're weak, but because something in you refuses to betray itself any longer. And that's when everything starts to shift. You stop tolerating conversations that drain your soul. You stop making excuses for people who never saw your worth. You stop shrinking yourself to fit inside roles you've outgrown. This is not arrogance. This is awakening. You're not pushing people away. You're returning to your own energy. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. And you will call it fate." And you're done calling pain your destiny. You're done calling numbness your normal. Now you want real, you want raw, you want peace, not performance, and to claim that you'll have to let go of more than just habits. You'll have to release identities. The people you once needed to please, the places you stayed too long, the relationships you clung to out of fear, not love. It hurts, it always does. Growth requires grief, because you're not just losing a version of life, you're burying a version of you. But in that space, freedom begins to rise. You realize, not every invitation deserves your yes. Not every silence is yours to fill. Not every memory is a reason to stay. And when you finally choose yourself, not out of ego but out of alignment, life responds. You meet people who mirror your truth. You find spaces that honor your depth. You stop chasing peace because it's already inside you. And perhaps for the first time you begin to breathe in a world that finally fits. Not because it changed, but because you did. You stopped asking, will they accept me? And started asking, am I still abandoning myself? You stopped performing. You started living. You started listening. And what you heard was your soul, whispering what it's whispered all along. Let it go. You're not lost. You're returning. Returning to the you that doesn't need to beg for love, doesn't need to wear masks, doesn't need to settle, And if this is happening to you right now, if the old life is burning, if the path ahead is unclear, if your heart feels both terrified and wide open, this is the sign. You're not at the end, you're at the beginning. Not a breakdown, a breakthrough, not falling apart, finally falling into place. And what's coming? It's not ease, it's not comfort, it's truth. It's the best phase of your life. Not because it's perfect, but because it's finally yours. Welcome home.